Hello and greetings vinyl community to another video from my new channel. I still haven't done a full introduction yet, but I thought this would be quite a nice video to do as way of an introduction. It's one I've seen quite a few videos of, and that's the vinyl tag, 20 questions. So I've got those questions here and I've picked my records out, so I thought I'd share that with you. Question 1. How many records do you own? I didn't know until I counted them today. There's about 450 albums, 12 inches, and about 200 singles. Although the singles, the 7 inches, I will be liquidating the entire collection really. I'll be selling the whole lot. So it's pushing towards 500. That's 12 inches. What kind of record player do you have? I have two. There's one up there in this room, and there's one through there in the front room. So it's a bog standard AWA. It's just an AWA hi-fi. The one through there it's a half decent. It's a Pioneer PL990 with a Marantz amp and some Mission speakers. It's okay. It does for me listening to vinyl for now. It'd be nice to upgrade slightly. I just don't want to get too technical with the turntables. I don't want to end up down the road of arms and cartridges and the like. And the reason why I have two systems really is I have some really nice new vinyl, and I've got some vinyl which I bought new in the 90s, and it's still in pretty new condition. I've played it a few times. Apart from that, it's in near mint condition. So I keep my new vinyl over there on that shelving unit and played on the nice system, and the more dirty, scratchy stuff that I buy second hand from charity shops goes in this cupboard and plays on that system. I don't really want to put stuff that's too scratched and dirty on that nice system, and I don't really want to play my nice records on the kind of half terrible AWA. So that's my systems. How old were you when you started collecting records? Well, I'm in my mid 40s, so I'm a child of the 70s. So like a lot of people my age, a record player was part of the furniture in the house. I had one of those flat systems, the flat tape deck and the record player and the radio across the front. So from quite an early age, once I'd shown that I could treat the records with respect, I was allowed to use the record player. So from about the age of 7 or 8, I could sit in the back room while the family's watching telly with the headphones, listening to Diana Ross, Leo Sayer, Rolling Stones, all kinds of stuff. For myself, it was 13. That's when I started doing a paper round. It's the first time I started earning money. I had my own money in my pocket. I was mainly buying cassettes then, but yeah, 13. Next question. What is the oldest record you own? I'll probably say it's featured in my video I did this morning, The King and I, 1956. There's possibly something older in the singles collection, and possibly one of the classical. Got some old Russian classical music discs that are kind of proving difficult to age, but 1956, The King and I. What is the first record you ever got? There were two. I must have been about 8, maybe 9 years old. Before we had car boot sales, we just used to have standard jumble fares, and the school that was behind our house had a jumble fare, and I hopped across the fence and went with, I think these probably cost me 10 pence each, or probably less, I don't know. So this was in the early 80s, very early 80s. So I bought these two singles from that fair, and I still have them. Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields Forever by the Beatles, and Boney M, Brown Girl in the Ring, and Rivers of Babylon. Both I still have. And what is the first record you got with your own money? So that was probably pocket money my parents had given me. This was the first record I bought with what was essentially my own money. I think I had a paper round then. So this was 1986, so I would have been about 14. So I'd have been doing a paper round, had my own money. I think a single was about £1.49 back then. I think I got about £3.50 a week. House Martin's Happy Hour. Came out, I went straight uptown to buy it. One of those, I almost remember the day walking into town just giddy, Sydney Scarborough's to buy this, and they've even on the back cover they've put, it's like one of those things you used to get in the 70s and 80s in comics particularly, where they always interacted with the reader, and you get those competitions, and there's I like this record because answering not more than 10 words. Now, of course, there's no competition, there's nowhere to send it off, but like a naive, like 13, 14-year-old, I've got my silver pen and I've put original, well put together, good. So there you are. It's in less than 10 words. There wasn't much space and it's on black, so it was very difficult to actually put that in, but there you are, Paul Heaton and the gang. Answered your question. Do I win a prize? Destroyed the value of that unless I become very famous myself, in which case value will be rocketed. It wasn't until 3 years later, Waiting for Mary. This is Pere Ubu band, and the single is Waiting for Mary. This caught me just at the right time. I was just waking up. I had a lot of cassettes. I think I had the entire Queen collection on cassette. I had a lot of Grace Jones on cassette, and this single came out. I saw it on MTV. I absolutely loved it. I'd never heard of this band before. I didn't know they'd been around since the early 70s. I went and bought this, loved it. And so this was really my entry into full collecting, rather than just as a piece of music, as a piece of vinyl, because then when the album came out, I went and bought the album, the Pere Ubu album, and then I bought the next album that came out a year or two after this, and then I started buying their back catalogue. So it was really Pere Ubu that got me into vinyl, being almost like a purist. What is your favourite coloured vinyl? Really love this question, because I really adore coloured vinyl, and I have got quite a collection of coloured vinyl now. If I can get a version coloured, I will. But I'd have to say the pick of my favourites would be this. It's the Star Trek, the motion picture. Well, no, it's the motionless picture amongst Star Trek fans, affectionately. And this is the expanded version, or extended. I do have a 1-disc version, which was released back in the day. This is a new issue, I think it's 2016. And this is a thing of beauty. It's an absolute thing of beauty. So there's the artwork for the cover, a booklet inside it, and that's the artwork for the original Star Trek motion picture soundtrack, which I do have sat on the shelf up there. It's a beautiful booklet. It's what you'd expect from it's top of the range. It doesn't look like somebody's just knocked this together at home on Microsoft Publisher. You know, it's what you'd expect from a top class distributor like Paramount. Inside, so basically notes and credits for both issues, and I'll show you one disc because they're both practically the same. The nice Star Trek logo, A, B, C and D, and the disc itself is just, I mean, it sounds incredible as well. I love this soundtrack. I love all the Star Trek soundtracks. Like I say, I do have a fetish for soundtracks. But there's something about putting a piece of coloured vinyl like that on your turntable, and then when it makes a noise that is so good as well. Yeah, that is a true thing of beauty. So that's my favourite coloured vinyl. It really is. What is a discount album you own? Most of them up there are discount. They're things I've bought from charity shops, mainly. But I don't know, I mean, I picked out a random, what I call a real discount album. It's one of these like collections. And this one, there are... There's a copy version of 1976 there, and there's a copy of 1975 there, and this one's 1979. There's a few tracks on the back. It's got 2 Blondie tracks. Okay, as far as collections go, you know, I'm not really into that kind of thing. I don't really have the space to keep them, but there you go. What is your prized collection? Or sorry, your prized possession? Well, like a lot of people, all of them are prized. What is particularly prized, I'll show you a photograph of it because it's in there and I'm not going to drag it through, is the Queen Studio Collection. That really is a prized possession. But aside from that, what also are prized possessions are the likes of, this is a compilation album of like indie bands, but it was at a gig where I saw it was David Cronenberg's wife were playing at the gig, and they were selling this album. So I bought this from them, and the guys from the band all signed it. But also, this is a friend of mine. I mean, he didn't start off as a friend, you know, he's not an old friend or anything like that, but, you know, we call each other a friend now. Jackson D. Love this guy. I've done some photography for him. I photographed some of his gigs, and I did him some nice photographs for free. This is his debut single release, Black Ribbon, which also signed. So things like this, you know, I'm friends with a band that has played with David Cronenberg's wife, so, you know, I've chatted and drunk with these guys, and the kind of gigs that I'm buying these from, where you see these bands, they're the kind of gigs where after the band has played, they basically walk off the stage into the crowd and make their way through the crowd to the bar. You know, and you're buying this off them, and you can have a drink and chat with them. So I really love that, getting, you know, close and personal with the bands. And I play in a band myself as well, so, you know. So yeah, these kind of things, you know, they're personal, they're signed. It's not worth anything. It's sentimental. A record by a female artist. Well, apart from my entire Grace Jones collection, she is my favourite. I picked 2 out here. One is Ella Fitzgerald, A Comparable Error, particularly for this one song, The Lady Is a Tramp. These kind of artists generally don't have a definitive recording. They have various recordings, either live or studio, of certain songs, and Ella seems to sing Lady Is a Tramp quite a lot, and it's just this particular recording has got something that I've not heard in other recordings of her singing Lady Is a Tramp. I don't know what it is. There's just some parts that she hits in that. So I might dig that out for a later video and give that a listen to and kind of go into that song a little bit deeper. And I'll show you what I mean. It's just, yeah, she like wears that song. And one of my other favourite female artists, Joan Armatrading, track record. I mean, it's okay. It's a good song. So it's a good record. Joan did the theme tune to The Wild Geese, which is a soundtrack that I do own, but I can't show you because it's somewhere on its way between Australia and here at the moment. A record by your favourite band. I don't know, I mean, favourite band, it's one of those difficult ones, but I'd have to say, I guess, if I have to name a band, it's going to have to be Queen, I think. And the one I've chosen is Queen Live at Wembley, which is, it's sort of coloured. This is there, if you can see that. One's green, and the other one is red. Oh no, they're both. It's blue. You can see that in that light. That's kind of blue. So this is a full recording of the Wembley '96 concert, which is, it's a standout concert. It really is. You know, and it's one of those things where I wasn't quite old enough at the time to go and see Queen. I was sort of looking at going to the Nebworth concert, but it was deemed by my parents that I was just too young, and bless him, my dad, whoops, my beer's under the table, bless him, my dad explained to me how this kind of worked, and that Queen were the kind of band that they basically album tour, year on year. So each year will be an album, then a tour. Next year, album tour. So it was like, you know, wait a couple of years, wait 2 years, there'll be another album and a tour. Of course, the rest is history. Never happened. I got to see them in '92, minus Freddie, so I never actually got to see Freddie. Really gutted. I remember watching this concert at the time. It was also broadcast live on Stereo and Radio 1. So I watched this concert. We put it on the radio as well. It was an amazing experience. And to get as complete a copy of that concert as possible, and for it to be on vinyl as well, it's just, you know, it's a piece of vinyl that I'd take to my funeral pyre, as it were, you know. An impulse buy. I picked out two here. I don't know why. I mean, this is the kind of rubbish I often do buy. Dance Time with Byron. And I mean, the cover just. So I've got to have this. So obviously, I think it's a technical record because the dance steps there, and these have all got. You can see they've got notations on 2-step 48 BPMs. It's got the tempo for them all. So this is like a technical album, and it's signed by the guy in 1985. So, well, it probably cost me 50p. But the real impulse buy is Gary Newman's album, Savage. I was checking my bank account one day and there was an item on there for £33 with a very strange entry, and I didn't know what that was. There was a link on it, so I checked that out, and it took me to a GoFundMe, was it, or one of those websites, and drunkenly, without even remembering, I'd been online, I'd seen that this was available as part of, so I basically paid for it about 6 months before it was released, and I had no memory of buying this at all. It wasn't until I saw it on my bank statement. And then 6 months later it arrived. A gift. Well, like I was saying before about going to gigs. This was again another. It was, you know, a small, quite intimate gig. This album by the band Snow Apple. I think they're from Holland. They're Dutch. Amazing vocalist. I just happened to be sat right at the front next to the stack of amps, and while they were playing, on the table in front of me was a suitcase. So while they were doing, so just as they were about to do the encore, the lead singer, somebody had opened the suitcase by then. So, and the lead singer was pointing out that they had their record for sale. So as I was sitting next to the suitcase, I picked up a couple of copies of their record, and like a kind of, I stood up, and while she was explaining it, I was, you know, displaying them to the audience. And then when they finished the encore, this suitcase, I mean, it got swamped. Half the audience just descended on this suitcase straight away to buy this. It was an incredible gig. So I started selling the records to the punters. I mean, they were £5, £10, £15, whatever it was. There was no real change to them. And I sold about 250 quid's worth of vinyl and CDs out of that suitcase for the band. And I put one aside before it sold out, and they were amazed and delighted, so they gave me this for free. They all signed it, and thank you so much for helping us with the sales. So yeah, beautiful. Most played record. Well, that took a lot of thought. There's Grace Jones in there, there's Frankie Goes to Hollywood in there, and there's obviously Queen. But the one I've picked out is News of the World, because throughout my life, probably this is consistently the most played. Mostly because of the two songs at the end, It's Late and My Melancholy Blues. If you don't know those songs, go and get this album and listen to those songs, because they are just amazing. It's the way to finish an album. You can listen to this album and be thinking, oh, you know, I mean, it starts with We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. You know, two of the biggest hits in music history. And it ends with It's Late and My Melancholy Blues. So yeah, News of the World. Actually, also in that year, catching up with News of the World, I've put this in as a sort of bonus answer to that question as most played, and this is Queen's Made in Heaven. And this is a surprise for me because, you know, I'm a massive Queen fan. I have been since the day I was born. And I only listened to this for the first time this year. I kind of departed from Queen in that period of the early mid-90s. I wasn't too impressed with the output of the last couple of albums, and I wasn't really looking forward to or interested in that when it came out. So I only listened to it for the first time this year, and this is the copy from my Queen Studio collection. So one disc is on this most amazing blue. And look at that for a colour. And the other disc is on clear. And yeah, I was shocked and surprised at how good this album was, and it has grown on me. And particularly, It's a Beautiful Day. This disc has parked on my record player for days and weeks on end. It's basically the first thing I play often in the morning. I'll come up and whack that stereo on half blast and stick the first side of this album on. It's a Beautiful Day. I can understand why people don't like this album, and I can understand why Queen fans don't like this album. You know, you've got to think of it as not a Queen album, as it's an epitaph to Freddie, you know. But if you've never listened to It's a Beautiful Day, the Queen official channel has a copy of it on their YouTube channel. Go and just listen to that song. A rarity, right? I mean, I guess it depends what you mean by rarity, because for a collector, things can get quite fractal, and what one person classes as rare may not be rare to you. I have a few rarities in my Queen collection because I do collect bootleg concerts. So I'll go through those another time. But I've picked out this one. I'm going to do a video on this at some point because I have more than one copy of this. I have a few. This is what quite a debating point among Queen fans. Because there is no actual soundtrack to Highlander as such. So this is an unofficial. It's a bootleg. And this is on a really, really nice blue vinyl, kind of blue clear. So this is clearly, I mean, it's just lifted directly from the movie, I guess. But this is all we have in terms of a soundtrack, and it's the only place you will see a copy of Freddie singing New York, New York. That is an interesting thing. Boy, do we want the full copy of that. According to Brian, it sort of exists, sort of doesn't. A Rainy Day record. I've chosen Rocky Horror Picture Show. Now, I have this copy I bought because it's a beautiful red vinyl. And then, a matter of a couple of weeks after I'd bought that, they issued an expanded version because there are some songs missing off this, which is the standard. This is I think a 2015 possibly, or 2016 reissue, and I've had copies of this album before. It's always the same copy and there are songs missing. They've just decided to release those songs, so there's a double album here. So for the sake of completeness, I had to buy that, and hooray! It's also on beautiful red vinyl. That is an absolute treasure. I love this song, and it's the kind of thing, you know, I can put on a rainy Saturday afternoon, and I'll just be singing along like crazy to that. A feel-good album. The one I've chosen is Liverpool, Frankie Goes to Hollywood. It's I just love this album. This cost me 59 pence. It's a follow-up to Frankie to Pleasure Dome. Wasn't seen as good, but there's a certain maturity in this, and the overall thing for me throughout this entire album is just the messages of hope from beginning to end. In a time like 1985, I mean, Frankie Goes to Hollywood themselves had been part of this darkness, the whole nuclear holocaust potentiality that we had in 1984 and 1985. Politics was very polarised. You've got Thatcher, you've got the miners at their height. Music is intensely politicised and weaponised. And this has got none of that. It's timeless, and it's just full of hope. I love this. A nostalgic record. So, I mean, I guess, again, it's another Queen album, but, you know, they've been musically quite a part of my life. The Works. Because before I started buying, when I started listening to music by myself, my parents bought me a cassette player. So for Christmas I got a cassette, and they bought me one cassette, and two cassettes. It was Queen The Works and Queen Greatest Hits, and I couldn't get over what I was hearing on that album. I mean, I knew a lot of the songs from Greatest Hits, so that was a joy. But when I got to Back to Machines, Back to Humans, just amazing. So yeah, so that takes me back to being a young kid with my first ever tape player. I guess it's like the equivalent of children or kids these days getting their first iPod or something. Their first taste of independence, because they've got control of the internet. For us, it was control over the music. And a recent purchase, that's this one. It arrived today, and I shall do a proper unboxing video, because I'm not going to fully open it now. I'm just going to show you what it is. Oh look, there's extra layers of wrapping. Let me into it. And a layer of paper. This is the deluxe David Bowie's The Man Who Fell to Earth. That's my latest purchase. Bought it a couple of days ago. It arrived about 2 hours ago. It's still cellophaned, look at that. 2 discs, a booklet, and I believe there's a CD in there as well. Beautiful. Okay, so that's my, it was a bit longer and more involved than I originally planned. I do apologise. Well done if you stuck with me that long, and we'll see you soon for some more videos, including an unboxing of this.